So I'm crying? It's funny because just the other day I was talking to myself about how it had been a while since I last saw a great animated movie. I saw a lot of really good movies, but I was still kinda waiting for that great one. Soul is a great one. And I know it feels kinda cliche to say this because it's a Pixar film and everyone always loves those, but Pixar has been disappointing before. I was honestly expecting to be disappointed. But I'm telling you, this movie has something to say, and I love what it is saying. So I want to talk about it. Fair warning though, this is the first time I've made a video so close to a movie's official public release, so if you haven't watched that already, give it a chance before coming back to this. I will be talking about things that aren't mentioned in any of the trailers, and there will be heavy spoilers from this point on. The movie is out on Disney+, so you don't even have to get out of the house or anything. Just come back here in 2 hours. I'll wait. Are we good? Alright. I wanna talk about Soul. The premise of this movie isn't exactly new. You've got their interpretation of the afterlife and all of the theories about it. You've got a body swap moment and all of the tropes that follow. You even have a moral about finding joy in the little things, and this has all been done before. But what the movie does with these ideas brings a lot to be explored. Our protagonist is Joe Gardner, a band teacher who dreams of becoming a great jazz pianist. Life hasn't worked out for him that way so far, but all of this is about to change once he gets a chance to play for a musician he greatly admires. As he is celebrating the good news though, he falls into a manhole and finds himself in the afterlife. He isn't ready to say goodbye to Earth, especially now that he's so close to fulfilling his dreams. So he tries to reconnect his body to his soul so he can keep on playing soul music. Oh my god, I just got the title! He manages to escape the Great Beyond and drifts into the Great Before, also known as the U Seminar. This is where the souls hang out before going to Earth. And no matter how hard Joe tries to escape this place, he is always pulled back in. The only way out of there is to get an Earth Pass, which is granted to new souls who are ready to start living. These souls are guided by mentors, who are the souls of once remarkable people tasked with helping the new ones find their way. Joe is mistaken for one of those people and becomes responsible for Soul 22, a troublemaker who refuses to go to Earth. In this universe, personalities are formed before the souls are born, and they fill out these slots that represent a soul's characteristics. The last spot is reserved for what they call a spark, which proves that the person is ready to go to Earth. At the U Seminar, Joe spaces out before the afterlife agents get a chance to explain what a spark is, so at first we don't hear the official definition. In any case, it doesn't really matter to Joe, because he thinks he knows all about sparks. In fact, he even knew what his spark was. When he was a young boy, his father took him into the city to see a marching band. No, just kidding, it was to see a jazz presentation. And the pianist's tune inspired him so badly he dedicated the rest of his life to become just as good as that musician was. Playing the piano became his obsession. It was all he thought about and what gave his life meaning. He believed that he was meant to be great and inspiring, and everything he did was supposed to bring him closer to fulfilling that destiny. 22, on the other hand, never found her spark. She's had access to simulations of different Earth activities, but none of them seemed interesting enough. She has also been shown the feats of people who have guided her, as that can often inspire other souls to find their own paths, but it's also never worked on her. She's become so disillusioned with life on Earth that she would rather never have to live in it at all. Therefore, Joe and 22 come up with a plan. If he can find her spark, she'll get her Earth Pass, and she can give it to Joe so he can return to his body. They try out a bunch of activities and even revisit some of Joe's old memories, but nothing seems to do the trick. As a different attempt, she takes Joe to see Moonwind, a man with a spiritual connection to the realms of the beyond and who helps lost souls find their way back to their bodies. This method seems to be working, but they mess up, and Joe gets stuck in the body of a cat while 22 takes over his own body. 22 is very unhappy at having a decaying physical meat form which, mood, and Joe is just as unhappy being a cat, which, not mood at all, he is living the dream. With the help of Moonwind, they come up with a plan to switch back just in time for Joe's big debut show, and the rest of the movie follows their adventures as they deal with the obstacles they find along the way. Even though their most pressing objective is getting Joe back into his original body, there is also the matter of helping 22 get her spark. She's never been able to find it before and faced all opportunities to get one with a deep sense of apathy. Earthly things felt boring at best and terrible at worst, and being thrust into a loud and stinky planet only seems to confirm this theory. Still, part of her can't help but wonder why people feel so determined to live in it. She found Joe's life absolutely pathetic, but that didn't stop him from trying to get back to it. When she runs into one of his students who is trying to quit music, 22 agrees with her attitude at first, but the girl talks herself out of her own idea just by playing a tune she'd been rehearsing. 22 doesn't understand it, but she wants to. And the more time she spends on Earth, the more she starts to understand. At some point, she finds herself in a barber's chair while still stuck in Joe's body, and she opens up about her own anxieties. The way she sees it, it is understood that people are born to do something. In that sense, her idea of a spark is not very different from Joe's. They both believe that a spark rules your destiny, and unless you follow that passion, your life will lose its meaning. However, she also expresses the inherent fear that comes with this idea. How do you figure out what that thing is, she asks. What if you pick the wrong thing or somebody else's thing? Then you're stuck. The same feeling is later echoed when Joe asks her what she thinks of the Earth now that she has seen it. She says that deep down, she's always been afraid that there's something wrong with her, like she's not good enough for living. But now that she's been through all these experiences, she has a whole new perspective on the idea of passion, and she wonders if her spark can be something trivial, like walking or skywatching. But to that, Joe argues,
those really aren't purposes, 22, that's just regular old living.
It doesn't take long until they are captured by one of the agents of the afterlife and brought back to the Great Before. 22 is furious that Joe made her lose her one chance of finding her spark, but as it turns out, she had already found it. There's no way of knowing what did it exactly. Souls at the Great Before seem to find their sparks kind of at random, which is why they spend so much time trying out different activities. Any of those little moments could have been 22's trigger. Joe believes it only happened because 22 was being guided by his body. After all, she didn't have any interest before going to Earth, and according to him, his passion for music was so great it was sure to inspire others. Both Joe and 22 have been conditioned to equate sparks with purpose, and it's not hard to see where that idea came from. After all, people on Earth are told they need to do something with their lives. To Joe, that answer was becoming a famous musician. But his journey to do so was riddled with failure, which in turn made him feel like he had failed at life in general. 22, on the other hand, never felt a calling for a specific path or activity. Even if she learned to find beauty in the things other people did, it didn't mean she wanted to do those things herself. Being guided by some of the most remarkable humans at the U seminar meant that she was constantly told she needed to do something great, and even when she wondered if merely enjoying life could be considered enough of a purpose, Joe immediately shuts that idea down. He mentions to one of the agents that they were never able to figure out what 22's exact purpose was, and the agent argues that they were never meant to assign a purpose to a soul. Still, Joe remains convinced that this isn't true, and travels back to Earth with 22's rejected pass. He arrives just in time for his show, finally achieving the goal he spent so many years working for, and it's not enough. Once he gets home, he sits defeatedly in front of his piano. The instrument that should bring him absolute euphoria feels just as empty of potential as he does. He then looks over to the trinkets that 22 had saved over the course of the day. Objects that are absolutely worthless to most people, but that gain a whole new layer of meaning thanks to the memories attached to them. He sets them up in front of him, where his music sheets are supposed to be, and he uses them as his guide to play a new tune. The music takes him through his memories, bringing back thoughts of all the wonderful moments he has lived through, spectacular in their simplicity, in their unrivaled intimacy, in how unique they are to him, but also in how universal they appear. The camera pans from his apartment over to the city, the planet, the galaxy as a whole, as if that's what the universe itself is made of: joy and connections and love. That is what he was made to do. There is no great plan, no ultimate destiny. Humans don't need an overruling purpose. There isn't just one single thing people are supposed to do, and life isn't automatically pointless the second you steer away from that path. A spark is nothing more than just regular old living. Joe has always seen himself as a man with a passion. Music was everything to him, and he figured that's what the whole point of life was. There's nothing wrong with following your passion. The movie even argues that it can elevate your spirit and bring you to a whole new level of existence. It makes you feel good, and therefore it can be positive. But a passion isn't the only thing that can make you feel that way. When 22 was still controlling Joe's body, she helped the man confront his mother and mend their relationship. And by the end of it, both the soul and the human recognized that that moment had felt just as good as playing the piano often did. Joe's barber Dez was so good at his job, the man had figured he had been born to do it. But Dez says he actually wanted to be a veterinarian instead. Life just didn't work out that way. Still, it didn't stop him from living a life full of happiness. There isn't one set path for fulfillment. The movie also argues that diving too deep into your own passions can turn them into consuming obsessions, which can actually ruin your will to live. Life isn't defined by following a purpose. It is said that a spark is what proves a soul is ready to live on Earth. 22 spent ages trying to find one and being told there was something wrong with her when she failed to do so. When Joe catches a glimpse of her mind, he sees how negatively those words have impacted her, and how they are further distorted by her own insecurities, as if her lack of a specific passion meant that she was somehow broken. The reason why 22 took so long to find a spark was because she had convinced herself she would never find one, and therefore she would never be ready to live. When she wonders if her spark could be something trivial like walking or sky watching, she had already found it. We are being presented with two kinds of people: one who knows exactly what they want to do with their life, and one who has no idea. And they are both equally capable of enjoying their time on Earth to the fullest. A spark is a will to live, and the wish to keep on living just for the sake of living, because that way you can keep experiencing things and getting a little closer to understanding something you were never meant to fully understand. It is all those little things that feel as fleeting as the seasons, and as magnificent as an entire galaxy. When Joe was inspired by that piano player all those years ago, he figured he was meant to be just as grand. When he looks back at his own memories, he realizes he has never actually reached that level of awe-inspiring relevance, and he concludes that this has rendered the whole journey meaningless. But when he plays the tune guided by 22's trinkets, his flashbacks tell him otherwise. He was an inspiration to his students, and his classes were as meaningful as any concert. He had just been blinded by his own unachievable standards. He was an inspiration to 22 just by letting her live. You don't need to do something impressive in order for your life to be worth it. The point of living is just that, living. And if you find a career that brings you joy, that's great, but that doesn't actually define you. And if you never find it, that's okay too. Just experiencing life is all the impressiveness you need. And in a world where kids are forced to pick a profession the second they are out of school and supposedly stick with it for the rest of their lives, it feels so refreshing to have a story like this telling us it's okay if we have no idea what the answer to that choice is supposed to be. Because yeah, it is scary to think you might pick the wrong thing or be stuck with someone else's thing. But the choice itself doesn't matter, and you can change your path anytime you want, or never change it at all if you feel happy about it. The point of life is life itself. As she finally accepts her place on Earth, 22 and Joe drift apart after saying their final goodbyes, and Joe lets himself be taken to the afterlife. Before he can jump into the great beyond, however, he is approached by one of the U Seminar agents, who claims they have decided to give him a second chance. They say that their reason is that, while they are in the business of inspiration, it is not often that they find themselves inspired. We're talking about beings whose existence is so unfathomable our brains would struggle to comprehend them in their true form, and who have interacted with the most remarkable humans that have ever lived, and they are inspired just by regular old living. Because that's always been enough. And this movie expresses this idea so beautifully that it sparks with a glow bright enough to enlighten all of those who come across it. Thank you for watching. Well, hello there. It was very nice of you to watch this video. If you have enjoyed the video, you can do those cool things such as clicking the like button, subscribing to the channel, and clicking the notification bell too. You can also follow me on Twitter and share this video with your friends. If you really like what I do, you should consider supporting me on Patreon. I have linked it down in the description and I highly recommend you check it out. Feel free to leave a comment down below, especially if it is about how much you love Soul. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on my next video. Bye!
My dad took me to this jazz club, and that's the last place I wanted to be. But then I see this guy.